As a professional involved in electricity delivery, the T&D World podcast and tdworld.com is your definitive source for breaking news, industry updates, and more. We've got you covered from transmission to distribution and everything that affects the power grid. And now, on to today's episode.
Welcome to the T&D World Live podcast. I'm Nikki Chandler, Editorial Director, and today I'm so excited to have Chris Root with us. We actually have known Chris for several years here at T&D World, going back to your time at VELCO, that's what we call it, Vermont Electric Power Company, Chris. And then I know that you've written several times for us before, and of course we see you out at a lot of events. So, Chris, do you mind kind of giving us an update of what you're up to right now? We know you're no longer with VELCO, but if you could just update our audience where you're at, what you're doing.
Right. Right. So I was Chief Operating Officer at VELCO for 9 years, and then now an industry advisor at Danovo, which was previously Quanta Technology. And so I'm an industry advisor, helping industry dealing with the problems that they're being confronted with all the changes going on in our industry. I've just finished up 5 years as the president of the U.S. National Committee of C-Grade. And I just finished up 3 years of the IEEE Board of Directors representing the power industry at the IEEE Board of Directors.
So, Chris, part of the reason that we are having you on this month is that we're looking forward to some of the industry events this year, like Distributech, and like we were talking about IEEE ST&D is this year. But one of those industry conferences is TechCon, which is going to be in Puerto Rico, March 24th through 27th. All of these shows are coming up pretty quickly. And I know there are going to be quite a few key utility players there. It's being hosted by Luma Energy, and I think it's going to be a great venue considering what Puerto Rico has been through and what they're doing to rebuild and modernize their grid there. But I don't know a whole lot about TechCon, kind of besides what I've been introduced to this year. Could you tell us a little bit about that conference, how long it's been going on, if you know that, and have you been there before, which I think you had said you'd been there and learned some really cool things. So if you could kind of share a little bit of background on TechCon, that would be great.
TechCon is a conference that is sponsored by H2B, which is a company that does a lot of testing of like oil sample from transformers, and is a test company, right? Primarily. And they've been running it in the US for 30 years. This is like the 31st year that they've had TechCon North America, but they also run them all around the world too. They have several in Europe and Asia, other ones. I've been going 7 or 8 years at least, and it attracts a combination of utility people that are concerned with either the maintenance of equipment, primarily substation equipment, or the protection system, the relay systems. So they attract quite a few combinations of engineers, senior managers in that area, or also even technicians who are looking to continue to learn more about the latest types of technology to use to identify potential problems with equipment before they fail. Now, in that case, they're also, one of the things unique about this conference is they run several training seminars during the conference that are practical. They talk about, usually the one company's doing one on load tap changers and showing how to do it. They're also usually doing ones on transformer monitoring and how to monitor transformers, and or a protection type specific protection thing. So it's a little bit of a hands-on part of it, which is unique, right? A lot of these are engineering conferences only, but a lot of the people don't, particularly engineers, don't get to see some of this stuff. So they're seeing practical applications of what the things they design or have to maintain. So that's really cool. We have a number of papers that are written by utility people about what's going on in their companies. and which is also good. And then we have panels, right? So I'm also going to be running a panel, particularly looking at where the engineers are going to come from in the workforce development of those engineers over time, which we all struggle with trying to find the right people. So it's a unique conference. I'll be honest. If people haven't been to Puerto Rico, of course, it's part of the United States, so it's very easy to get there. You don't need a passport, you don't need a visa or anything to go to Puerto Rico. The hotel and the place it's in is beautiful. I've stayed there before for other things in Puerto Rico. It's a beautiful place, a beautiful hotel, and old San Juan is almost walking distance from it, which is just an amazing, very, very old. What people don't know about Puerto Rico is that Columbus went to Puerto Rico in one of his subsequent trips back to the New World. He went to Puerto Rico and claimed it for Spain back in like the 1400s or something. So it's a quite old place, and which is and it has a unique character. So there's a combination of things that going there in that time of year, it's going to be beautiful.
Yeah, and that kind of reminds me, I actually have been there once. I went on a cruise when I was a lot younger, and we went through, that was a port of call, which I'm sure it probably is still for a lot of
Mm.
cruises, but wow, that sounds really cool. Now, you were telling me a little bit before we jumped on about something that you had learned at TechCon from a specific paper. Do you mind kind of expanding on that and tell me a little bit about what that was?
So it's very interesting because of their focus is on like equipment and
Hmm.
what happens to equipment. It isn't something that necessarily would have showed up at IEEE or CGRE necessarily, but there was a bunch of data that was coming through. The H2B was noticing that premature failure of transformers on wind farms in Spain, which has a very high number of windmills in Spain,
Hmm.
and so they had premature failures that nobody could understand why they were failing. And we had one of the experts was there to talk about it and wrote a paper about it. And come to find out, other companies are starting to see it. The reason was is that they were buying transformers that were just distribution class transformers, nothing special about the transformers. And people in America do the same thing. A lot of the designers do the same thing. Well, over time, combination of the type of wind generation is not constant. It's always got a small amount of variation in it. And that variation of electrical pulsing, combination with the fact that the transformers are not really designed to see that kind of power. It's expected to see the type of power you see in a home or something.
Hmm.
They don't see that type. Have lead to insulation breakdowns in the transformers, and there's no real monitoring of those transformers. They're sealed transformers. You don't monitor them on a house or anything, and you don't monitor them. But then they start failing. You start taking them apart and finding out these are pretty cheap, pieces of equipment, and they're just not made for that type of usage. And I never heard that before. And it was just the only place I had ever heard it is at TechCon, and a lot of discussion. We've had follow-up meetings about that. There are a lot of people there in the industry who have asked me about it, and I've talked about it, and they're like, "How did you even know that?" And the only reason I knew it is because I had gone to TechCon that year.
Yeah,
So that's
well,
a true example.
yeah, and I find that too. Just getting out to events, you'll come upon those things like that you never have seen before, and even just with the web we have now, it's not quite the same as getting out to an event and seeing some of those things presented. So that's a really neat story. So you said that you're going to be talking about workforce development. Well, that's going to be your panel, which is awesome. What an important topic for our audience and the industry at large. And we've been covering that with IEEE PS over the last couple of years. So can you tell us who the panelists are going to be on that panel?
Yeah, I have three panelists with me,
Hmm.
and two of them are from utilities, and one of them is actually from a college that it was set up to supply people. So what one of the first one is Mark McVeigh, Mark McVeigh is an industry, well-known in industry, works for Dominion Energy.
Hmm.
I always call him as the Dominion genius. So he's kind of like, he's the super duper principal everything. And I think his title has to do with new technologies and everything, but everything goes through Mark when it comes to technology, and he's smart. He's also the head of the substation equipment part study area for Seagray internationally. So he has a worldwide
Wow.
responsibility on equipment, and he has won so many awards. He's an IEEE fellow and everything.
Hmm.
So he's just a very, very smart guy. But he has also been very involved in sourcing of people. And Dominion is very, very imaginative and in coming up with ways to source people from schools for not only engineering technology, but also from technicians. So he's going to be talking about the different things they do. They've just expanded the number of colleges that they have close relationships. They're in Virginia, so they're obviously Virginia Tech is one of them,
Yeah.
but they've expanded beyond them. It used to be before they used to take a lot of Virginia Tech. They still do, but now they need more. So they've expanded to a number of universities in that area. And he'll talk a little bit about that because the things they do, they are amazing with them. And then also, I know him, he will, and I think my next, the other two will talk about this, is also where do you get the craftspeople? Where are you getting the skilled talent that are doing work? I know in my past, we had set up relationships with community colleges,
Hmm.
even ran utility type programs to teach, people who are going to be electricians, what utility electricians would be like, and things like that. So I know that that's going to happen. My second person to talk is LaRonda Julian, and she is with Georgia Transmission Company, and
Hmm.
they are based in Atlanta, but they run a lot of the transmission in the state of Georgia. And she also has a unique perspective on recruiting people to their company. Okay. And because she's also got to compete with Southern Company, who's in the same geographic area. So
Yeah.
they're in competition with trying to get people from, that normally might go to Southern Company. So she has a unique perspective on that, which should be good, and what they use to develop people and the development plans they have. And then the last person is Dr. Carlos Cardona, and he is very interesting. So Luma, which is the utility on in Puerto Rico that was formed after the Hurricane Maria, as well as the
Yeah.
a number of other things, a flood that happened there, is that he actually has Luma College. He's the president of Luma College, which actually does training for their in-house staff, and they turned over. I want to say 80% of the staff got turned over when Luma was formed versus the government-run utility before. So it was
Yeah.
almost like starting a utility from scratch. They hired a lot of people. There's a relationships with four of the engineering universities on Puerto Rico. I didn't realize they had so many, but they have strong relationships with them. They bring a ton of interns in. They really are doing a lot to basically develop a pipeline that's local on the island. Okay, so these are people who grew up in Puerto Rico. They want to stay in Puerto Rico, but they need good jobs. They need the training to be able to be qualified for those jobs. And he is responsible for putting together those programs to find and get and recruit and train those people. And he'll have a unique perspective on it there, because that's been a very successful program for them. So
Yeah, I mean, and it sounds like there are a ton of creative things utilities can do to really help find those people. Uh, from your vantage point and your experience that you've had over the past 10 years or so, are you kind of seeing that aging workforce? Is it really showing up operationally quite yet, or is it something still, we're worried about in the future?
still coming on. It has been going on for a number of years.
Mm.
And it has been going on for a number of years. And I would say COVID didn't necessarily help it. And so like coming out of that, there has been a lot of demand for electrical engineers, and I'm going to say non-utility demand. So when you look at data centers, so who's building the substation in a data center? Who's laying out the electrical system in a data center? So the consulting businesses that are looking for that, I mean, if you can believe it, like Google and Amazon hire power system engineers now. So, so it's a different competition level for people. At the same time, if you're an electrical engineer, maybe I want to do design of AI systems, or maybe I wanted to go to data center designs. So there's even competition with those like high tech competition. So at the same time, there's an age out issue going on in utilities. At the same time, if you look at spending, and Nikki, you know this from your work at T&D World, the capital spending of utilities across the United States, just unbelievable increase in capital spending. And some of that's due to data centers, some of it's electrification of industries and things like that. When you look at it, I mean, all those new things need new work. You need engineers to build it all and design it all. So it's a whole different level of construction when you think of those type of large projects. They need a lot of engineers on them.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the titles of for one of your panelists session is where are the engineers going to come from, which I think is a great title. Mark McVeigh, that's his paper that
Yeah.
he's going to present, or his part of it. And you are talking about that as far as what is driving that younger technical talent, toward energy, or away from it. So do you see that there is a current talent pipeline? I mean, what are there younger, talented people interested in our industry, or are we still needing, like you said, to find a way to attract them?
Oh, I do think there's interest in it. It started with with their when they're in school learning about renewable energy.
Hmm.
Renewable energy was a big draw from people. They wanted to come in and work on things that was affected by climate change. So they started, they were interested in hearing it. Many schools who had stopped teaching power systems started that with renewable energy classes, and then how do we connect those and into distribution engineering. So there's a fair amount of interest in it. People see solar plants and want to, how do I design that stuff? So that's a big help. Now this whole data center thing laying on top is just exploded things and changed things. And the industry has realized, or at least the decision makers have realized that you can't just run the power system only on renewable energy very easily. And, there's going to have to be a combination of all kinds of new power plants are going to have to be built. And those are being fast tracked. And then you need a lot of reinforcement of the power system to be able to adapt to that new types of electrical flows with the new transmission and the new loads out there. So it's kind of cool. It's in the news a lot, right? There's always
Hmm.
in the news talking about data centers, but there's a lot of work to put a data center in. And when you think about the size of these data centers, some of the sizes of a small city. I mean, in one building. I mean, that's how much electrical use they use, right? So if you think of that, somebody's going to put in a field that uses as much electricity as a whole city. I mean, that's changes everybody's thinking.
Yeah, and I've heard that kind of that younger generation, they don't just want a job, they want a job that has purpose. And what a job that has purpose as far as being able to provide electricity, making sure that it's reliable. It's really kind of solving the world's problems if you can get involved in this energy industry. So I would think that would be a way to attract younger engineers too, as far as this is a really good technical job that has a really good purpose.
The social aspect to it, right? There's a
Yeah.
social aspect to it. You do something that helps everyone. So in the latest
Hmm.
storm that we had, here in the end of January. One of the biggest things that everyone was doing is that a million people lost electricity, right? In a cold winter storm, that's a big deal, right? So what can you do to strengthen and make sure that so we get a spotlight on the industry, not
Yeah.
necessarily good, but the issue happens, it's a natural disaster and you have to then deal with it. And people think, this is important. The electric system has saved more lives probably in the history of the world by refrigeration and all the things that we get out of electricity that we take for granted. And the only other thing I could equate it to is kind of the invention of beer back in the Middle Ages, so that people could drink the water, right? They couldn't drink water; they got sick. They realized how to do fermentation, and you could drink beer and you wouldn't get sick. So I mean, but it saved a whole generation of people. But if you think about it, electricity is something that everyone uses, needs to, and just ask a young person when their phone doesn't work for about 15 minutes. They realize how important when their phone dies it is.
Yeah, that Wi-Fi, it's crucial. So, yeah. So, looking at kind of the readiness of the workforce and coming into this new energy world and these needs that we have for these technical people, not only engineers, but also the technicians and the line workers too. Uh, should we change anything about, with how we get uh, everyone educated and ready? Should it still be kind of that 4-year college and then, take your PE and then, you're right into the job? I mean, to me too, I have a son that's actually pre-med, and becoming an engineer kind of looks like a little bit of an easier track, except for some of those classes. But, how should that change, or do you think we're kind of we do a good job of that?
I think the education system is trying to catch up with the new realities of things. So they
Yeah.
still teach stuff traditional. Um, Engineering obviously teaches people how to solve problems, right? That's the whole point of it. But when you layer on technology like AI and things, it's unbelievable with the power of what you can do. So I do think in many ways the use of new technologies allows the acceleration of some of their educational processes. You can do things that you couldn't do unless you had a 4-year degree because you couldn't learn all that stuff. Now you can have AI do it for you. So I do
Hmm.
think there's more opportunities for people with a lesser degree to move up into the technical side, even though they may not have a full engineering degree for some of the roles that we do. Not all of them, but some of them, some of the less technical but or semi-technical areas. So I do think there's a lot of that. And if you think of technicians and line workers and people that go out and do that, one of the things that electronics done, so everybody's got social media and things like that. There's so many other things that people spend screen time on, where years ago, a generation ago, they were outside fooling with cars. They were outside building stuff. They used
Hmm.
tools. One of the things we found is that you have to teach people how to use tools safely. They don't use tools. You know what I mean? My generation growing up, our big thing was to make sure we got, it's got a toolbox instead of acquiring tools to fix things and working on cars. They don't do any of those things. So in some cases, you have to teach a mechanical aspect of it. What's the right type of wrench you use, and what's this called, and why do you use this? And I mean, there's a lot more battery operated tools. That's true too, but you got to teach them how to use it. That's all.
Yeah, and what it does, right? The function, the right one to pick. I mean, yeah, that's a really interesting point. But yeah, I see that, with my kids too. So they tell us, well, we'll just figure it out. We can watch YouTube, but you've got to have a little bit of knowledge to be able to use the YouTube video and know how to use some things. Um, so my last question, kind of before we wrap up here, if you could name the most critical interventions that would make our industry's workforce more resilient, more future ready, what would that be? Whether it be policy, education, corporate strategy, culture, what can you pull out a couple of those key elements that you think are really important?
I do think that This is probably going against the norm, but I would actually say that recognizing that the people side of the utility business is just as important as the equipment. I mean, utilities and sometimes take for granted the people side of it, but remember the people side are the ones that are out there working at the ice storm in Tennessee, trying to put the wires back up and the power back in. And those people are super important, as well as good engineers and smart people come up with good solutions that are good for the public. And I think sometimes they lose sight of that. Sometimes senior management loses sight of that as a critical thing, and you wanting to invest in the people. You have the best people. And I think that part of this, and this goes back to TechCon, right? Allowing people to come to a conference and to learn new skills is super important. And you can do a lot of that with webinars, but when you get together with 150, 200 people like you who are all talking about, oh, I have that same problem that you have. We solved it this way. I've been to lots of conferences, and even as an executive, I'd bring back stuff that like I learned there, and I don't know where else I would have learned it. I'm not getting it from webinar. I'm not getting it from a document. Magazines can help, but where are you getting your new information from? This type of thing, like a TechCon, gets you the opportunity, and it's up to senior leaders and managers to allow their people to go there and realize there's value in it. And I think that sometimes that's an important thing to do. It's investing in people. You're giving them opportunities. They're giving them access to information that many cases, they don't even know they have a problem, right? If you know your problem, you can go and search it and stuff. But if you don't even know you have a problem, you go to these conferences, wow, I didn't realize that. Oh, I never would have thought of that. So that's kind of my take on it.
I completely agree. In real life, I learned so much quicker, and I actually come back a little inspired as well whenever I go to any event.
Oh, yeah, you do.
So, totally agree with you there, and I really appreciate that. Well, Chris, I think that's all we have for today, and I really appreciate it, like I said, and we'll see you all at TechCon. Thanks again for your service to the industry.
Thank you, Nikki. I really appreciated it. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks again for listening to today's podcast, produced by Endeavor Business Media, a division of Endeavor B2B. To hear the latest information for power delivery professionals and industry best practices, subscribe to T&D World Podcast and visit our website, tdworld.com, where you can find insightful articles and sign up for our free daily newsletter.